Hello, everyone, and welcome to the video covering Chapter 6 of our text. Like all the other videos, this is just meant to be a narrowing in on some key ideas and concepts and people from the chapter. There's a lot going on here as we're covering the late 1700s into the Civil War. So please make sure that you go through and read the chapter in its entirety. The pieces I'm going to focus in on are the parts that you may not have been exposed to as much through prior education. There are some ideas that you have been made aware of that the book discusses, like the slave trade, for example. However, within the context of this text, it also ties that idea back to the concepts of social reform and social welfare. So there's a lot of new ideas in there as well. But since I am trying to keep this video short, I'm just going to talk about the things that maybe are brand new to you. So thinking about kind of the evolution through the class, what we're really focusing on right now in our nation's history is that we're focusing on this continual shift of how we are working with individuals who are in poverty, working with the mentally ill, working with those who are physically ill, working with children. And so there is the private response and the public response. So the private response is being led by the Protestant church. You will see those ideas of the Protestant work ethic being pulled through again in their work. One thing that is important to remember about the private response is that there's kind of a dual purpose for the church stepping in and helping those. One is maybe what would be most expected is that it helps those who are in need, which is a charge of the church, right? So that is one piece. The other piece is that it's also serving as a form of the churches being able to try to convert the individuals that they are serving. There are still at this time a lot of individuals coming in from other countries all the time. And so this is an opportunity for the churches to kind of build their ranks as well. So while they are doing good work and they're helping individuals, there are ulterior motives at play as well. On the public side of things, you see a continuation of the American Poor Laws. So even post-revolution, we still see a fairly common response in terms of the poor laws, not very much changing in those regards. The book talks a lot about the existence of almshouses, poorhouses, workhouses. You see all those different titles pop up. It's interesting to see, because what you start to see in this time is you see more control moving from the local areas to the state governments. And so, in theory, there is a sense for change here. There's an opportunity for change here when you are trying to provide opportunities for all to be cared for in a similar fashion. That's kind of the idea of moving to the state providing care. But at this time, it doesn't look like what you think it does, right? Or especially not how it looks now. Although there is an increased level of care, the care that is being provided is questionable at best, intolerable, demeaning, cruel by its real standards. Individuals were placed into almshouses who, from all different backgrounds, almshouses kind of started the precedent of what would later become penitentiaries, and they were flooded with children, with women, with mentally ill, with violent offenders. And all of these individuals were placed under the state's care in these facilities, because the states are moving to this idea of institutionalization and moving away from outdoor relief, which is a term that we learned about in the previous chapter. Outdoor relief, remember, is individuals being able to receive assistance, but still being able to kind of live in their own homes and go about their own existence. Institutionalization um, institutionalization, we're moving towards the care being conducted in kind of one place. Okay, so the states are really adopting institutionalization, and it's not for the betterment of those who are in place, it's for the betterment of the state, because they found basically that if you shove a bunch of people in one place, that it is more economically efficient for them. It is less of a drain on the taxpayers, less money out of individuals' pockets, and so they shoved people together in these very, very undesirable conditions, really at their own benefit and not the benefit of those who are in those facilities. So keep that in mind. Go through and really focus on how individuals were treated in the almshouses, the conditions that they existed in. It's it's a sad read for sure, but it's our nation's history. So please go through and read about the deplorable conditions that individuals existed in. Want to kind of take a quick look at some of the names that pop up. Thomas Bond and Benjamin Franklin, you hear those names pop up. Benjamin Franklin, you're obviously aware of. These two individuals were brought up because in the mid 1700s, 1755, they were responsible for the creation of the first general hospital. So it's important to remember that kind of before this time, really only those who were of affluence and had money could pay for medical treatment. And so if you were wealthy, then your odds were a lot better at surviving, right? And so with the existence of general hospitals, it provided an opportunity for those who were less well off to receive care. However, it's also important to remember that there is a flip side to the coin. We need to keep looking at all of these issues critically, not with rose-colored glasses. From a high level, that sounds great, but when you look at the kinds of treatment that individuals were receiving, it's extremely sad. The book talks about the fact that if you didn't have the money to pay for better medical treatment, then really what you were paying for was your own physicality in terms of being exposed to experimental medical treatment. You see a lot of individuals basically being used as test subjects. The book talks about that one study showed that over 55, or it was about a 50-50 split, that if you were to go into a hospital, that you would actually come out worse than when you went in because of the kinds of experimental treatment that was being done. You do see later, because of the kinds of treatment that was coming out of the hospitals, that the American Medical Association was formed to start kind of regulating the care that was provided. In many cases, individuals were providing care who are not quote unquote doctors, right? They may have self-identified, but there was no like licensure that they had to go through, no formal medical training. And so around this time, you do start to see a more of a formalization in terms of that care. But we're in that time frame where individuals are being treated like lab rats in the hospitals. We also see around this time an individual named Benjamin Rush. He is kind of identified as the father of psychiatry. He pushed for this idea of moral treatment, which, man, that's one of those things that when you think about it, just really feels like it should be a kind of a common sense response, right? That if you're working with individuals, that you should be working in a morally pointed way. But it wasn't, right? Individuals were treated no better than animals, and in some regards, there are references to saying that animals often received more humane treatment. And so Benjamin Rush really worked in the world of psychiatry. He worked within the asylums, psychiatric hospitals, and he pushed for things like staff treating individuals with kindness. He pushed for separating patients by sexes. He removed violent patients from those who were mild and quiet. So before, everyone was kind of intermingled, and there was no real chance of I don't know, fair treatment, and it really made everyone's situations worse just from the environment alone. And now, with that said, again, can't look with this with rose-colored glasses. There are still a lot of things that are really wrong in the system at this time, but we're looking at things that are starting to shift. Okay, so even though we're not in a great place, we're shifting. Right, the country is shifting. There are ideas coming about that are in place that, when continue to be stoked, are going to be leading towards where we're at today. So we're definitely in growing pains, as an understatement, really. Another name that you're going to see pop up is Dorothea Dix. She also worked in revolutionizing the world of mental health. She went in and did numerous studies of the conditions of these different sites, made recommendations for how individuals should be treated, and then she also reached out to the federal government, pushing for relief for individuals struggling with mental health, specifically at the time individuals with mental retardation. And so she helps to kind of bring these ideas to the federal forefront, which is new for this time period. Previously, really the only kind of federal social welfare that existed was for veterans, and that was about it. And so Dorothea Dix came along and said that the federal government needs to step in where the states are failing, and also supply money and resources to improve the conditions of those in these institutions. And so there started to be the shift. However, at that same time, although her ideas came about, they were ultimately kind of vetoed and brought down, because the leaders at the time felt that if we continued to push for federal intervention, that it would open the floodgates for taking care of other individuals as well, not just those who are severely mentally ill. So she was leading the fight, leading the charge, but the federal government is not ready to step in and take over in any real substantial capacity yet. But again, shifting, right? We're shifting. So Dorothea Dix played a key role in that as well. The book also talks about how minority individuals are being treated in this time period as well. So, because that's a whole different ballgame, right? A lot of the book, what we're talking about, are affluent white people taking care of individuals who are also white, who are mentally ill or are poor. Okay, this has nothing really to do with the care of individuals of color, and of other nationalities, and so there's a whole different approach and focus in the book as well. So the book talks about how we're treating the Native Americans at this point, right? We are continuously still pushing towards this Native American genocide. You see the Indian Removal Act come out of this time. We're still seeing African chattel slavery. We're still seeing indentured servitude. We're seeing Chinese slavery as well. So there's almost at this time two different Americas still, right? We're seeing the response to white America, and then we're also seeing how white America is responding to minority individuals as well. So man, so much to unpack in this chapter for sure. As you read through this chapter, think about how some of the things that you're reading are also setting the tone for systemic racism, systemic classism, how you're seeing this continual leadership by the white wealthy, and then how everyone else kind of falls in line below that as well. Okay, so pick up on those themes as you're going through and reading. All right, folks, I'm going to cut the video here. I'm going to try and keep it short for you. Again, I just wanted to focus in on some of those key ideas, concepts, individuals that you're going to run into that maybe you haven't ran into before. But please go through it and read this full chapter. Very interesting read. A lot of really important information here. If I made a video that covered the whole book, we would, we'd be going for hours and hours. So the rest is up to you, but I thank you for tuning in. As always, please reach out if you have any questions. Thanks, guys.